Why do some Christian churches celebrate Halloween? This is undoubtedly one of the most disturbing and controversial questions of our time. Because behind this practice, there are not only disguises or innocent sweets, but a spiritual confusion that has gradually penetrated the heart of faith. The enemy, disguised as culture and tradition, has managed to make many lower their guard, wrapping darkness in the appearance of fun. What was once seen as a night of darkness and superstition is now presented in many temples as an alternative festival, blurring the lines between light and darkness and confusing entire generations. And here questions arise that should make us reflect. Can the Church of the Living God mix the holy with the profane? Can a child of light participate in the shadows of fear and death? What does the word say about those who call evil good and good evil? Dear listener, in this video, we will discover the true roots of Halloween, its spiritual background, and how, beneath a mask of innocence, lies a message that contradicts the very essence of the gospel. Prepare yourself, because understanding this will not only open your eyes, but will ignite in your heart the desire to live in holiness and to turn away from everything that does not honor Christ, the true light of the world. Before continuing, I want to share some good news with you. By the grace of God, we have created a prayer channel, and you can find us on YouTube as Altar of Prayer. Every morning, we share prayers that I'm sure will be a great blessing for your life. If you're going through difficult times, if there are problems in your family or situations that only you know about and you don't know who to tell, I invite you to join us in prayer. Express to the Lord everything that is in your heart. He is there to listen, give you strength, comfort, and fill you with that peace that surpasses all understanding. So don't hesitate. Join this beautiful family in Christ. We'll be leaving the channel link in the description of this video. Let's get started. There are many Christians who celebrate Halloween. Some do so out of custom, others out of ignorance, and still others because they think it's just another holiday. Some time ago, renowned singer Jesus Adrian Romero publicly expressed his support for this celebration. His words sparked a wave of reactions. Thousands of believers were scandalized, and others supported him, saying that faith shouldn't be so legalistic. Since then, many have imitated this attitude, decorating their homes and even their churches with pumpkins, orange lights, and cobwebs, believing it to be something harmless. But the question is, can a Christian participate in something that spiritually represents the exaltation of darkness? To answer this question, personal opinions and emotions aren't enough. We must go back to the source. Only by knowing the beginning can we discern the purpose. So before we judge, let's look at what Halloween really is and where it comes from, so we're not called legalists, but rather men and women of spiritual discernment. The Halloween that millions of people celebrate today with candy, masks, and lights didn't begin as an innocent custom. Its roots are spiritual, ancient, and pagan. To understand why a Christian cannot be part of this celebration, it is necessary to return to its beginning, to the place where it all began, the darkness of Celtic paganism. More than 2,000 years ago, in the territories of Ireland, Scotland, and part of the United Kingdom, the Celts lived under a worldview governed by the Druids, priests who served as judges, healers, diviners, and mediators with the invisible world. Their central festival was Samhain, held every October 31st, the threshold between the light of summer and the darkness of winter. They believed that on that night the veil between the living and the dead thinned, allowing wandering souls and hostile spiritual entities to enter. It wasn't just a change of season. It was a night of open doors to the spirit world. Visits from the deceased to former homes were expected. Vengeful spirits and beings from the underworld who brought illness, harvest failure, or madness were feared. The fear wasn't psychological, it was cultic. This fear motivated rituals designed to appease, distract, or manipulate the invisible forces. Large bonfires lit by the Druids were erected on hills. Fire was considered purifying and protective against what came from the afterlife. Processions, pagan prayers, and divination took place around it. At dawn, families would carry embers home to light the protected winter fire, believing that the embers would ward off evil and curses. Animal sacrifices were offered as an act of appeasement and as a request for protection. Ancient sources also refer to human sacrifices in certain ritual contexts, understood as extreme offerings to gain the favor of deities and appease evil spirits. These practices sought to buy spiritual security in the face of a winter feared by hunger, plague, and death. To avoid being recognized by the entities, many covered themselves with animal skins and grotesque masks. The goal was to blend in with the darkness and go unnoticed. From this, disguise emerged as a spiritual strategy, not as entertainment. Dressing up as something monstrous meant adopting the image of the enemy to avoid their attention or attack. Families would leave food and drink at the entrance to their homes to give something to the spirits and thus avoid harm. They would go door to door to collect offerings for the nightly rituals. This pattern gave rise to the concept summarized today as trick or treat. Treat, give something to avoid evil. Trick, suffer the curse if the offering was refused. It wasn't a game, it was a pact of appeasement with the spirit world. Samhain was a season of augury. Druids practiced oracles, lotteries with seeds and bones, reading embers and smoke, and trials with fruit to try to predict the future. The purpose was to control the uncertainty of winter through magical practices, consulting the dead and occult powers. The arrival of winter meant the death of vegetation, so rituals were held to ensure future fertility. Seasonal fruits, grains, and animals were used in symbolic gestures of protection and blessing, blending survival and superstition. One of the most visible symbols of Halloween is the carved pumpkin with a face, called jack-o'-lantern. Its earliest ancestor was not the pumpkin, but the turnip. Legend tells of Jack the Stingy, a man who outwitted the devil and, upon dying, was admitted to neither heaven nor hell. Condemned to wander, he was given a burning coal to light his eternal path, which he placed inside a hollowed-out turnip as a lantern. Jack's lantern represented the restless soul, trapped between two realms, illuminated by a light that burns but does not comfort. Over time, in lands where pumpkins were more abundant and easier to carve, the turnip was replaced by the squash. Thus was born the image we know today, a spectral face smiling with an inner light. In spiritual terms, the symbol communicates loss, condemnation, and mockery. The inner light evokes the burning embers of torment. The carved face suggests the grimace of a trapped soul, an echo of damnation that becomes an ornament. The lantern embodies the idea of restless wandering, a life separated from the true light. It is not an innocent decoration. It is a visual catechesis of darkness, transformed into a festive object. Samhain was designed as a night of contact with the dead, of appeasing spirits, and of magic to master the future. Costumes were born to blend in with the darkness. Trick-or-treating emerged as a pact of offering and threat. The pumpkin inherited the image of a wandering soul illuminated by a flame of judgment. In essence, Halloween is the ritual language of death wrapped in symbols that normalize what heaven calls darkness. Now, the Halloween that was born in the pagan forests of northern Europe did not stop there. That dark rite, fueled by fear of the dead and spirits, crossed centuries, mountains, and seas, becoming one of the most widespread celebrations on the planet. But although it changed in form, its spiritual essence never changed. What was originally a night of sacrifice and superstition is now adorned with lights, colors, and sweets, but it remains a night consecrated to darkness. When the Roman Empire conquered the northern European territories, it did not eradicate the Celtic festival of Samhain, but rather absorbed it into its own festivities. The Romans celebrated the Feralia, a day dedicated to the dead, and the festival of the goddess Pomona, a symbol of fertility and harvests. Pomona was represented with an apple, and that fruit, a symbol of forbidden knowledge and desire, became one of the oldest icons of Halloween. Historian Nicholas Rogers, in his work Halloween, From Pagan Ritual to Party Night, explains that Samhain was a celebration marking the end of the harvests and the beginning of the dark half of the year, when the dead mingled with the living for a single night. That concept of the return of the dead, the fear of the afterlife, and the search for protection through rituals remained intact, although Rome covered it with a layer of civil religiosity. During the first centuries of Christianity, pagan customs did not disappear, but were covertly integrated. The Catholic Church, in its effort to eliminate Druid cults and replace them with religious celebrations, instituted All Saints' Day in the 8th century. Pope Gregory III established November 1st as a day to honor martyrs and saints, with the intention of sanctifying the ancient night of Samhain. Thus, the night before October 31st was called All Hallows' Eve, or the Eve of All Saints. Over time, this name evolved into the word Halloween. The attempt to Christianize the date did not destroy its original spirit, but rather syncretized it. Paganism survived disguised as devotion. The Druids' bonfires became candles, sacrifices became sweets, costumes became tradition, and contact with the dead became a prayer for souls. Folklore historian Owen Davies summed it up this way: Halloween's pagan roots in Samhain gave it a foundation of supernatural mystery, but its transformation into a Christianized festival allowed it to survive through the centuries. That is to say, what seemed like a victory for Christianity was, in reality, an adaptation of paganism under a new religious administration. BBC History confirms this hybrid origin. The tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, when people lit bonfires and wore costumes to ward off ghosts. Fire, disguise, and fear were still present, only now within a religious framework. Thus was born a new version of the same ancient ritual, a dangerous blend of faith and superstition, religion and occultism. Centuries later, the holiday crossed the ocean. During the 19th century, thousands of Irish and Scottish immigrants arrived in America, bringing their legends and customs with them. Among them is the story of Jack-o'-lantern, the man condemned to wander with a burning coal of hell inside a turnip. In the New World, the turnip was replaced by the larger and more abundant pumpkin, giving rise to the modern symbol of Halloween. What once represented the wandering soul between heaven and hell was transformed into a festive decoration. The Library of Congress records that during Samhain, people would leave out food to appease the spirits that roamed the earth at night. Eventually, people began dressing up as these beings in exchange for food and drink. The same spiritual pattern remained, exchanging gifts for protection, fear for fun, death for culture. In America, Halloween became a commodity. Factories began producing masks, stores sold costumes, and schools organized children's activities. Film and television amplified their power, transforming terror into spectacle and the demonic into fashion. Fear became profitable, evil became entertaining, darkness became fun for the whole family. In the 20th century, Halloween was exported from the United States to the entire world, with the help of advertising, tourism, and the entertainment industry. Today, more than 180 countries celebrate Halloween, and it generates more than $10 billion annually, making it the second largest commercial holiday after Christmas. What was once a night of sacrifice is now a global business sustained by spiritual ignorance. But although the symbols have been modernized, the original message hasn't changed. Halloween continues to glorify death, normalize fear, and promote darkness as attractive. The aesthetic of hell has become a global culture. And the most alarming thing is that this trend has even reached churches. Some churches, eager to appear relevant, have created Christian versions of Halloween: Night of Light, Children's Festival, Trunk or Treat. But as revivalist Leonard Ravenhill warned, the world does not need a church that looks like itself, but a church that reminds it of what it should be. The enemy doesn't fear the Night of Light. He fears the men and women who live in the light. Evil doesn't disguise itself as darkness. It disguises itself as culture, fun, and religion. Now, Halloween isn't just a holiday, it's a spiritual language. Every symbol, every costume, every figure the world considers harmless has a story, a root, and a purpose. Nothing in this holiday was created to glorify God, but rather to exalt what he condemned. Therefore, discerning the spiritual meaning of the costumes is to unmask the face of the enemy hiding behind the entertainment. Historian Owen Davies wrote that the power of Halloween lies in its power to make the supernatural familiar. And that is their strategy, to accustom the soul to darkness, making the demonic seem normal. The Apostle Paul already warned us in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, and no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Let's look at the dark symbolism behind costumes. First, the costume, a spiritual mask. From its origins in the Celtic festival of Samhain, the costume had a magical function, to confuse the spirits of death. The ancient Druids taught that if a person took on the appearance of a demon or an animal, evil would not recognize them and would pass them by. It was an imitation of the enemy as a form of protection. But what was imitated out of fear is now practiced for fun. The mask, once an amulet, is now a fashion statement. However, the spiritual principle remains the same, to use the image of darkness as entertainment. Cultural sociologist Christopher Harding, a specialist in comparative religion, wrote, "Costume is a symbolic negotiation. The wearer seeks power in that which he fears." The problem is that Christians don't negotiate with fear. They overcome it in the name of Christ. Second, the witch, symbol of the covenant. The witch is one of the oldest figures in Halloween. In medieval Europe, witches were seen as women who had made a pact with the devil, capable of flying, casting curses, and manipulating the forces of nature. The Witch's Hammer, a 15th century inquisitor's manual, describes how nightly gatherings called covens were held, where Satan was worshipped. That same symbol persists in modern Halloween, albeit disguised as a caricature. The pointed hat represents inverted spiritual authority, the broom is a symbol of astral travel, and the cauldron evokes magical sacrifices. All this symbolism has become humor, or a children's costume, but it retains its occult roots. In the Bible, God condemns all forms of sorcery and divination. Deuteronomy 18 verses 10 to 12 states, "There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or a sorcerer, or a spellcaster, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord your God drives out these nations from before you." Therefore, when a Christian allows his children to dress up as witches for fun, he is unknowingly validating a symbol of spiritual rebellion. Third, the devil, the caricature of hell. One of the most common disguises is the devil, with horns, a red cape, and a trident. This character was created during the Middle Ages as a visual mockery of hell. Over time, culture transformed him into a comical, sympathetic, even sexy character. The strategy is clear: make the enemy a laughable figure. Hell is trivialized, judgment is minimized, and sin is trivialized. Thus, a generation that laughs at the devil ends up not believing in him. Theologian Robert Charles Sproul wrote, "When the devil can make a man see himself as a caricature, he has won half the battle." The devil's disguise isn't entertainment, it's the normalization of spiritual rebellion. Fourth, the vampire, the spirit that feeds on life. The vampire, a figure inspired by ancient Slavic myths, represents the immortal being that feeds on blood. In biblical language, blood is a symbol of life. Leviticus 17:11 says, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls, and the blood itself shall make atonement for the soul." The vampire embodies a blasphemous inversion of that principle, the desire to possess life without God, to live eternally outside the Creator. It is the spiritual echo of Eden, wanting to be like God but without God. Therefore, vampire stories are theologically antithetical to redemption. They promise immortality without repentance and boundless pleasure, the same offer the serpent made to Eve. Historian Montague Summers wrote, "The vampire is the perfect metaphor for the unredeemed soul. It lives, but is dead. It seeks blood, but not life. It imitates Christ, but feeds on others." And that is the spiritual reality, a profane imitation of Christ's sacrifice. Fifth, the zombie, the walking death. The zombie is a modern figure, but its roots lie in Haitian voodoo rituals, where it was believed that a witch doctor could control the body of a dead person. The zombie symbolizes existence without spirit, the body that walks without soul, man without God. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 1 describes it precisely. And you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins. The zombie is a parody of fallen humanity, purposeless movement, directionless desire, and lifeless life. Therefore, although today it may seem like a simple movie or costume, it represents the spiritual condition of the world without Christ. Sixth, the little angel or little devil, the dangerous mix. Many Christian parents allow their children to dress up as little angels, fairies, or little devils on Halloween, thinking they will avoid evil. But that is precisely the most subtle deception, the mixture. Satan doesn't always present himself with horror. Sometimes he disguises himself with tenderness. The angelic disguise on Halloween night is a spiritual irony, light participating in darkness. The Apostle John, in his first letter, chapter 1, verse 5, warned, "If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth." Dear listener, every Halloween costume, no matter how innocent it may seem, has a spiritual seed within it. The seed of fear, of the occult, of deception, or of sensuality. The enemy doesn't need open worship. Unconscious participation is enough. Because whoever participates at the table of the world, even if they say they don't believe in it, has already given space to the spirit of confusion. British folklorist Owen Davies concludes, Halloween survives because it adapts its symbols to each era without losing its original soul, the link to the afterlife. And that's the heart of the problem. Culture has changed the names, the colors, and the shapes, but the spirit remains the same, a global homage to darkness. Halloween is the modern altar where the world celebrates its reconciliation with darkness. And while men disguise themselves as the enemy, Christ continues to call his church to clothe itself in light. Romans 13 verse 12 says, "The night is far gone, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light." The believer needs no mask because his face is covered with the glory of Christ. He needs no disguise because his identity is in the Lamb. And he needs no night of darkness to shine because the light within him never goes out. Now, Halloween isn't just a holiday of the past, it's a prophetic sign of the present. What began as a ritual of darkness in the forests of Europe has transformed into a worldwide celebration of fear, death, and the occult. And that has spiritual implications that go far beyond culture. The enemy isn't behind candy or costumes. He's behind the mindset this generation has embraced, a mindset that prepares the world for the final great darkness. The Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Thessalonians 2:3, "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." The word apostasy means deliberate abandonment of the truth, and that is precisely what Halloween represents prophetically. The abandonment of spiritual discernment and the normalization of evil under the guise of fun. First, the culture of fear, a hidden prophecy. Halloween has transformed spiritual fear into a spectacle. Fear, which was once a means of seeking refuge in God, is now a consumer product. Society has learned to play with what it should fear. And this inversion of the value of fear is, according to Scripture, a symptom of the last generation. Pastor John MacArthur wrote, "The world today has lost its capacity for horror at sin. What was once repulsive is now celebrated." When that happens, God's judgment is near. Halloween is a spiritual snapshot of that diagnosis, fun surrounding evil as a prelude to judgment. Second, the cult of death, the prelude to the Antichrist. The global rise of Halloween is not just economic, it's ideological. For the first time in history, humanity is uniting to celebrate death. No matter the culture, religion, or language, every year in October, the entire world raises symbols of skulls, demons, witches, and blood. It's a global liturgy that prepares society to worship what the Bible calls the mystery of iniquity. Revelation 13, verse 4 states, And they worshipped the dragon who gave power to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with it?" This worship will not begin suddenly, but gradually through a culture that learns to accept darkness as part of everyday life. Halloween, in its modern version, accustoms the human soul to the language of hell, the play with the macabre, the exaltation of darkness, and the loss of horror of sin. Theologian Tim LaHaye, in his eschatological commentary, said, "The spirit of the Antichrist comes not disguised as a tyrant, but as popular culture." And that is exactly what we see. A system of values that prepares the human heart for the profane, removing spiritual sensitivity. Third, the mixed church, the most dangerous sign. The most alarming thing is not that the world celebrates Halloween, but that the church justifies it. What began as Catholic syncretism in the Middle Ages has now become evangelical syncretism. Many congregations, instead of confronting darkness, adapt to it so as not to appear old-fashioned. But every time the church adopts the ways of the world, it loses its power to redeem it. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Dear listener, you cannot be light by participating in darkness. Light does not converse with darkness. It exposes and dispels it. Pastor Aidan Wilson Tozer wrote, "A church that looks like the world cannot save the world." And that is the prophetic tragedy of our age. Congregations disguised by culture, believers without discernment, and temples decorated with symbols once used to summon demons. Fourth, from symbolic darkness to literal darkness. Halloween is not just a pagan holiday, it's a prophetic parable. Just as the ancient Celts lit bonfires to drive away the darkness of winter, the modern world is preparing for a time of real spiritual darkness, described in Revelation chapter 9. It will be the time when the abyss will open and evil spirits will be released upon the earth. Everything celebrated symbolically today will soon manifest literally. Halloween is a dress rehearsal for the spirit of the Great Tribulation, humanity celebrating what God hates. And while the world dresses up to honor death, heaven prepares to reveal the glory of the Son of God. Evangelist Billy Graham put it clearly, "The devil knows his time is short. That's why he multiplies distractions and turns sin into entertainment." Halloween is one such distraction, a holiday that celebrates the enemy on the eve of judgment. Now, in the face of this global darkness, God is raising up a discerning, holy, and unmixed church. A church that isn't afraid to denounce what the world celebrates. A church that proclaims with spiritual authority that Christ has already defeated the power of darkness. Ephesians 5 verse 11 says it clearly, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them." Therefore, Halloween is not an innocent tradition. It is a prophetic liturgy of the Antichrist's system. Every time a believer participates in it, even for fun, he loses spiritual sensitivity and opens doors in his home, his mind, and his heart. But every time the believer rises in prayer, holiness, and discernment, hell recedes. Therefore, the voice of the church cannot be silent. It must shine with truth, it must denounce with love, and it must proclaim with power. Jesus Christ is the only light that dispels all darkness. Halloween isn't just a holiday. It's a reflection of a godless world, a generation that laughs at sin and plays with darkness. While the world celebrates what hell applauds, heaven weeps for a humanity that has lost the fear of God. But there is still hope, dear listener. Christ remains the light that shines in the midst of darkness. He did not come to condemn the world, but to rescue it from darkness. And that light is not lit by pumpkins, but by surrendered hearts. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 8 says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light." Dear listener, this is the time to decide to whom we belong, to the night of the world or to the light of the Lamb. We cannot serve two masters. While many celebrate the night of fear, you can raise the altar of truth. May your home, your family, and your life be a testimony that the light of Christ conquers all darkness. For when hell celebrates its night, heaven seeks those who still desire to shine. Jesus is the only light that never goes out. So we come to the end of this video. I sincerely thank you for following us to the end. I invite you to share this teaching so that more people may be edified and reflect on the Word of God. See you in the next video, and may the peace of the Lord be with you and your entire family, today and always. May God bless you abundantly.